The grand chamber fell silent when the elders entered. Every representative, from every species, stood from their seats. Some bowed. Others pressed their limbs against their chests in gestures of respect. A few simply stared with wide eyes at the beings who had existed before their stars were born. The elders were made of living crystal. Their bodies were tall and thin, formed from pale blue quartz that pulsed with soft light. They moved slowly, as if time itself meant nothing to them, and perhaps it did not. The elders had lived for 8 billion years. They had watched galaxies form and die. They had seen countless species rise, spread across the stars, and then vanish into dust. When they spoke, the galaxy listened. The elder speaker stopped at the center of the chamber. Its crystalline face had no eyes, no mouth, yet everyone present could feel its gaze upon them. The voice that came from it was not sound but thought, pressed directly into every mind in the room. "You have made a grave error," the elder said. "The species you call humans, you should have destroyed their homeworld before they ever looked up at the stars." Whispers erupted across the chamber. Representatives turned to each other in confusion. The Cathari ambassador, a tall insect-like being with emerald wings, raised one of her 4 arms. "Honored elder," she said carefully, "humanity is a minor species. They achieved faster than light travel only 40 years ago. They control perhaps 200 worlds in a single corner of the galaxy. What possible threat could they pose to civilizations that have existed for millions of years?" The elder speaker did not move. It simply stood there, ancient and patient, as if waiting for a child to understand a simple lesson. "You see their small ships and their small worlds," the elder replied. "You see their short lives and their soft bodies. You think they are weak. You think they are harmless." The crystal being paused. "We thought the same. Twice before. Twice we waited too long." The chamber erupted into noise. Dozens of species shouted questions. What did the elder mean? What had happened before? What were humans really? What? But the elders offered no answers. They simply turned and began to leave, their crystal bodies catching the light as they moved toward the great doors. "Wait," called the Yalani representative, a massive creature covered in thick gray fur. "You cannot simply warn us and then leave. Tell us what to do. Tell us how to stop them." The elder speaker paused at the doorway. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that might have been sadness. "It is already too late," it said. "It was too late, the moment you let them leave their homeworld. But perhaps you will understand. In time. Perhaps you will see what we saw long ago." A small object floated from the elder's body and drifted down to the chamber floor. It was a crystal, no larger than a closed fist, glowing with soft inner light. "This contains our records," the elder said. "Study them. Learn. And when you finally understand, remember that we warned you." Then the elders were gone, and the chamber fell into chaos. The Galactic Council debated for 7 days. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called the elders' warning foolish paranoia. A few suggested that the ancient beings had simply grown too old, too disconnected from the younger species of the galaxy. In the end, they decided to do what all governments do when faced with uncertainty. They formed a committee. They assigned researchers. They buried the problem in paperwork and hoped it would solve itself. The crystal data core was sent to the archive of Cathar Prime, where a young archivist named Yuna was tasked with unlocking its secrets. Yuna was not important. She held no rank, commanded no ships, and had never spoken to anyone more powerful than her department supervisor. She was simply good at her job. She could read dead languages. She could piece together broken data. She could find patterns where others saw only noise. For 6 months, she worked alone in a small room deep beneath the archive. The crystal resisted her every attempt to access it. Its code was older than any language she knew. Its structure followed rules that made no sense to her modern mind. But Yuna was patient. She was careful. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to understand. The first files she recovered were simple. Star charts of galaxies that no longer existed. Records of species whose names had been forgotten for billions of years. She cataloged them carefully, noting their technologies, their cultures, their achievements. Then she found the first mention of the Endless. The name appeared in thousands of files, always surrounded by the same strange notation. Yuna did not understand its meaning at first. She thought perhaps it was a title, or a religious concept, or a scientific classification. It took her 3 more months to realize the truth. The Endless was a species. A single species that had risen 8 billion years ago in a distant galaxy. They had been unremarkable at first. Physically weak, technologically primitive. Their lifespans were short, barely a century. They had no natural weapons, no special abilities, no obvious advantages. But they had spread. Slowly at first. Then faster and faster. They had not conquered other species. They had not enslaved them or destroyed them. They had simply joined them, married them, adopted their children, learned their languages, shared their food, told their stories. Within 10,000 years, the Endless were everywhere. Yuna stared at the data on her screen. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through file after file. Population records, genetic analyses, cultural surveys. The evidence was overwhelming and impossible to deny. The Endless had not taken over their galaxy through war. They had done it through love. And as Yuna read deeper into the ancient records, she began to see the patterns that the elders had recognized. The same behaviors, the same strategies, the same quiet, patient, unstoppable spread. She thought of the humans she had met. The ones who learned Cathari in months, when her own people took years. The ones who adopted alien orphans and raised them as their own. The ones who married across species lines without hesitation. Her blood ran cold. The elders were right. Humanity was not a threat because of their weapons or their ships. They were a threat because they were impossible to hate. And by the time anyone realized what was happening, it would already be too late. Harkin Station hung in the darkness between 3 star systems. It was old and ugly. A massive structure of metal and stone that had been built by a species now long dead. Over the centuries, it had changed hands dozens of times. Now, it served as a trade hub, a meeting place, a home for anyone who needed one. Tay liked it here. He had arrived 5 years ago, a young engineer looking for work far from Earth. He had found a job at the station's reactor facility, a small apartment on level 47, and something he had not expected to find. He had found friends. His co-workers came from 6 different species. There was Vex, a Torani mechanic with thick blue scales and a laugh that echoed through the hallways. There was Mira, a Cathari technician whose 4 arms could repair anything. There was old Goran, a Yalani supervisor who complained constantly, but always made sure everyone ate lunch. They had been suspicious of Tay at first. Humans were new to the galaxy, unknown, strange. But Tay had simply shown up every day, done his work, and slowly won them over. He remembered their birthdays. He learned their languages. He brought them food from the human restaurant on level 12, and listened when they told him about their families back home. Now they were his family. He did not think of it in those terms. He did not plan it or calculate it. It simply happened. The way water flows downhill. Tay was eating lunch in the cafeteria when he noticed the Cathari woman watching him. She sat alone at a corner table, her emerald wings folded against her back, her 4 eyes fixed on him with obvious interest. She was pretty, in the way Cathari were pretty, all sharp angles and iridescent chitin. He smiled at her. She looked away quickly, as if embarrassed to be caught. The next day, she appeared at the reactor facility. She introduced herself as Sora. a safety inspector from the Cathari government. She said she was conducting routine reviews of all major installations. She asked questions about procedures, equipment, emergency protocols. But Tay noticed that her questions kept circling back to him, to humans, to how they worked, how they lived, how they thought. He answered honestly. He had nothing to hide. Over the following weeks, Sora became a regular presence at the station. She conducted her inspections, filed her reports, and spent more and more time near Tay and his crew. She ate lunch with them. She joined them for drinks after work. She learned their jokes and laughed at the right moments. She was good at her job. But her real job was not safety inspection. Sora was an intelligence officer. The Galactic Council had sent her to study humans, to observe them, to understand the threat that the elders had warned about. She recorded everything, every conversation, every interaction, every small kindness and casual gesture. Her reports grew longer and more detailed as the weeks passed. Subject Tay displays standard human social behaviors, she wrote in one early report. He forms connections quickly, but they appear genuine. Coworkers report high levels of trust despite short acquaintance period. Further observation required. Tranges plane. Dialan Zong. Coworkers report. A month later, her reports had changed. Human integration patterns are unprecedented, she wrote. Subject Tay has become functionally indispensable to his work team. He mediates conflicts. He remembers personal details that others forget. He adapts his communication style to each species he interacts with. When asked how he does this, he appears genuinely confused by the question. He does not seem aware that his behavior is unusual. 2 months after that, Sora requested a private channel to her superiors. I am concerned, she reported. Not about human aggression or expansion. I am concerned because I cannot find anything to be concerned about. They are helpful. They are kind. They are adaptable in ways that should not be possible. Subject, Tay, learned conversational Cathari in 11 weeks. Our language typically requires 4 years of study for non-native speakers. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I have also observed the following patterns across the station's human population. They form tribal loyalties to non-humans faster than any species on record. They find solutions to problems that other species consider unsolvable. They recover from physical injuries and emotional trauma at rates that exceed medical predictions. And they possess a trait I can only describe as creative hostility. When faced with a threat, they do not simply defend themselves. They find ways to turn anything into a weapon. Anything, including kindness. Her final report, sent 6 months after her arrival, contained only a few sentences. I was sent here to find evidence of a human threat. I found something worse. They are not conquering us with warships. They are not infiltrating our governments or stealing our technology. They are simply making themselves essential. Every day, in small ways, they become more necessary, more trusted, more loved. I do not know how to fight this. I do not know if we should. Recommendation. Further study required. But I suspect the elders were right. We are already too late. Sora closed her communication channel and sat in silence. Through the window of her quarters, she could see Tay walking across the station promenade with Vex and Mira. They were laughing about something. Tay had his arm around Vex's scaled shoulders, a gesture of friendship that would have been unthinkable between their species a generation ago. She thought about her mission. She thought about the Council's fears. She thought about the Elders' warning. Then she thought about how Tay had remembered her birthday last week, how he had brought her a small cake from the human bakery, decorated with Cathari symbols that he had clearly researched himself, how he had smiled when she thanked him, a simple, genuine smile with no hidden meaning. She was supposed to be studying him. Instead, she realized, he had somehow become her friend, and that, she understood now, was exactly how they did it. Sora deleted her final report. She would write another one tomorrow, something the Council would find acceptable. But tonight, she had been invited to dinner at Tay's apartment. She was looking forward to it. Yuna had not slept in 3 days. Empty food containers covered her desk. Her eyes burned from staring at screens. Her hands shook slightly as she typed. But she could not stop. Not now. Not when she was so close. The Elder Data Core had finally opened itself to her. After 9 months of patient work, the ancient crystal had surrendered its secrets, and those secrets were rewriting everything she thought she knew about galactic history. The Endless had been the first. 8 billion years ago, in a galaxy so distant that its light had not yet reached this part of the universe, a small species had begun its quiet expansion. They called themselves the Endless because they believed that their connections would last forever. They were physically weak, short-lived, and technologically primitive. By every measure that civilizations use to judge strength, they should have failed. Instead, they had spread like wildfire. Yuna read through thousands of records. She saw how the Endless had joined other species instead of fighting them. They learned alien languages. They adopted alien customs. They married into alien families. They raised children who were half endless and half something else. Children who carried both bloodlines into the future. Within 1,000 years, the Endless had peaceful contact with every major civilization in their galaxy. Within 5,000 years, they had intermarried with most of them. Within 10,000 years, there was no species left that did not carry at least some endless blood. They had not conquered. They had merged. The records showed what happened next. A great crisis arose. A threat from outside their galaxy that endangered all life. The Endless and their hybrid descendants united against it. They fought. They sacrificed. They won, but at a terrible cost. The original Endless were gone. Their bodies burned away in the final battle, but their legacy remained. Every species they had touched carried their genes, their memories, their way of thinking. The Endless were dead, but they were also everywhere, woven into the fabric of every surviving civilization. Yuna leaned back in her chair. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was impossible. This was too big. This changed everything. But there was more. 4 billion years after the Endless. In another distant galaxy, the pattern had repeated. A species called the Woven had risen. They were different from the Endless in appearance and culture. But their behavior was identical. They connected. They integrated. They made themselves essential. The Woven had faced their own crisis, a different threat, but equally dangerous. They had united their hybrid descendants and saved their galaxy, just as the Endless had done. They had sacrificed themselves, just as the Endless had done. And they had left their mark on every species they had touched, just as the Endless had done. Yuna pulled up genetic databases from across the current galaxy. She ran comparisons. She checked her results 3 times, then 4 times, then 5 times. The Elders carried traces of Endless DNA. So did the Cathari. So did the Yalani, the Torani, the Velosians, and every other spacefaring species in the galaxy. The markers were faint, diluted by billions of years and countless generations. But they were there. Every species in the galaxy was connected to the Endless. Every species in the galaxy owed its survival to beings who had lived and died before their stars were born. And now, humanity was doing the same thing. Yuna pulled up current data. Human population statistics. Marriage records. Adoption filings. Immigration patterns. The numbers were small compared to the galaxy's total population, but the trends were unmistakable. In 40 years, humans had spread to over 200 worlds. They had married into at least 30 different species. They had adopted thousands of alien children and raised them as their own. They had learned dozens of languages, mastered hundreds of cultural traditions, and formed millions of friendships across species lines. The pattern was identical. Not similar. Identical. Yuna thought about what this meant. She thought about the Elder's warning. She thought about the Council's fear. She thought about the two galaxies that had been saved by species that no longer existed. The Endless had been called a threat. They had saved their galaxy. The Woven had been called a threat. They had saved their galaxy. Now humanity was being called a threat. And if the pattern held, they would save this galaxy too. But at what cost? The Endless had sacrificed themselves. The Woven had sacrificed themselves. Would humanity face the same fate? Yuna did not know. The data core did not contain those answers. It only contained the past, not the future. She stood up from her desk and walked to the window. Outside, the great city of Kethar Prime stretched toward the horizon, its towers glittering in the afternoon sun. Somewhere in that city, humans were living their lives. Working, laughing, falling in love, making friends, having children. They did not know what they were. They did not know what they would become. They were simply being human, doing what humans had always done. And perhaps, Yuna thought, that was the most frightening thing of all. The Endless had not planned their integration. The Woven had not schemed their expansion. They had simply existed, following their nature. And the galaxy had changed around them. Humanity was doing the same thing, not because they wanted to take over, not because they had some grand design. They were simply being themselves. And being themselves meant connecting, bonding, weaving their way into the fabric of galactic civilization. Yuna knew she had to report her findings to the Council. They needed to know. They needed to understand. But she also knew it would not matter. The Elders had been right from the beginning. It was already too late. Humanity was not a threat that could be stopped with warships or quarantines. They were not an enemy that could be defeated in battle. They were something far more powerful and far more unstoppable. They were family, and you could not fight family. You could only join them. The secret session of the Galactic Council took place in a chamber that did not officially exist. 12 representatives sat around a dark table, their faces hidden in shadow. No records were kept. No aides were present. What they discussed here would never be acknowledged. The archivist's report is clear, said the Cathari representative. Humanity follows the same pattern as the Endless and the Woven. If we do not act now, they will be impossible to remove. Remove? The Alani representative shook his massive furred head. You speak of genocide, the extermination of an entire species. I speak of survival, the Cathari shot back. The Endless absorbed everything they touched. So did the Woven. Do you want the same fate for our people? For our cultures? For our children? The debate raged for hours. Some demanded immediate action. Quarantine all human worlds. Sterilize their colonies. Destroy Earth itself before it was too late. Others argued for caution. Humanity had done nothing wrong. They had started no wars. They had threatened no one. How could the Council justify such extreme measures against an innocent species? But the fear was real. The pattern was undeniable. And fear made good beings consider terrible things. In the end, they decided to summon a human to answer for their species. Not a soldier, not a politician. They wanted someone who could explain what humanity truly was, what they truly wanted. They chose an elderly diplomat named Hana. She arrived alone, without guards or advisors. She walked slowly, her body bent with age, her hair white as snow, but her eyes were sharp and clear, and she showed no fear as she faced the most powerful beings in the galaxy. You know why you are here, the Cathari representative said. You know what your species has been doing. We want answers. Quote, Hana smiled softly. What answers would satisfy you? You have already decided what we are. You have already decided what we want. You brought me here hoping I would confirm your fears so you could justify your actions. Silence fell across the chamber. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then tell us we are wrong, the Yalani representative said. Tell us humanity has no plan to absorb the galaxy. Tell us you are not following the pattern of the endless and the woven. Hana laughed. It was a quiet sound, full of genuine amusement. There is no plan, she said. There never was. You have spent months studying us, analyzing us, trying to find the conspiracy at the heart of our species. But you have found nothing because there is nothing to find. She took a step forward, her old bones creaking with the effort. Humans do not scheme for galactic domination. We simply live. We meet new species, and we want to know them. We learn their languages because languages are beautiful. We adopt their children because children need homes. We marry across species lines because love does not care about biology. You call this a threat. You call this a pattern. But to us, it is simply who we are. We connect. We bond. We weave ourselves into the lives of those around us, not because we want to control them, because we cannot help ourselves. It is our nature, as natural as breathing. The Kithari representative slammed her fist on the table. Then your nature is a weapon. Intentional or not, you are absorbing our civilizations. You are erasing our identities. You are making us dependent on you. Hana met her gaze without flinching. Perhaps. But consider this. Counselor Veth of the Torani has a human wife. They have 3 children together. Admiral Torak of the Yalani fleet adopted a human son 20 years ago. That boy is now one of his most trusted officers. The Empress of the Volosians owes her life to a human doctor who worked through 3 days without sleep to save her. The greatest composer in Kethari history is a human woman whose symphonies have made your people weep with joy. She paused, letting her words sink in. You can kill us, all 7 billion on Earth, all 40 billion across the colonies. But can you kill Counselor Veth's wife? Can you execute Admiral Torak's son? Can you murder the doctor who saved the Empress? Can you silence the music that has touched so many hearts? The chamber was completely silent. You are afraid of us because we are everywhere, Hana continued. But we are everywhere because you let us in. You hired us. You befriended us. You loved us. You chose us, again and again, because we made your lives better. She spread her hands, a gesture of openness. So, kill us if you must. Burn our worlds. Erase our species from the galaxy. But know that you will not be killing strangers. You will be killing family. And the galaxy you save will be emptier and colder for our absence. She turned and began walking toward the door. Wait. The Yalani representative called. What do you want? What does humanity actually want? Crowed. Hana stopped. She looked back over her shoulder, her old face soft in the dim light. We want what everyone wants, she said. We want to belong. We want to matter. We want to leave the universe a little better than we found it. She smiled one last time. And we want you to let us. Then she was gone, and the council was left alone with their fears. 3 days later, word of the secret session reached Admiral Day. He was an old soldier, scarred by decades of service. But he was also wise enough to know when fighting was futile. He sent a single message to every human in the galaxy, encrypted and untraceable. Be kind, it read. Be patient. Be essential. They will come around. And slowly, one connection at a time. 50 years had passed since the Elder Warning. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one had predicted, and everyone had felt. Jin stood on the crystal plains of the Elder homeworld, watching the light of 1,000 suns dance across the ancient structures. He was young, by galactic standards, barely 40 years old. His face showed the mixed heritage of 2 species, his mother's Kethari angles softened by his father's human features. His skin held a faint shimmer, a gift from his mother's side, and his eyes were dark and warm, a gift from his father's. He had come here to ask a question that had haunted scholars for decades. He had come to understand the truth that the elders had known from the beginning. The elder speaker awaited him at the center of a great crystal garden. The ancient being looked the same as it had 50 years ago, unchanged by time, eternal, and patient. Its pale blue form pulsed with soft light as Jin approached. "You are Tay's grandson," the elder said. It was not a question. "Yes," Jin replied. "And Sora's. They met on Harkin Station. Long ago. We know. We watched them fall in love. We watched them build a family. We watched their children spread across the galaxy, carrying both bloodlines into the future." The elder's form shifted, colors rippling through its crystal body. "You are exactly what we expected you to be." Jin felt a chill run through him, despite the warmth of the twin suns. "I came to ask you something," he said. "A question that has bothered me since I first read about the ancient warning." "Ask." Jin took a deep breath. "Why did you not stop us when you had the chance? You warned the Council that humanity was a threat. You showed them the pattern of the endless and the woven. You could have united the galaxy against us. You could have destroyed us before we spread too far." The elder speaker was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that might have been warmth. "You misunderstand. We did not warn the Council to stop humanity. We warned them because we knew they would try to stop humanity and fail. We wanted them to understand why resistance was futile, so that they would accept the inevitable with grace, instead of suffering." Jin stared at the ancient being. "You wanted them to accept us? We wanted them to understand what you truly are." The elder moved closer, its crystal form casting rainbow shadows on the ground. "The endless rose, 8 billion years ago. We watched them spread. We watched them integrate. We watched them become everything to everyone. And when the great crisis came, we watched them sacrifice themselves to save their galaxy. The woven rose 4 billion years later. The same pattern, the same sacrifice, the same legacy. We carry endless blood in our crystal veins. So do the Cathari, the Yalani, the Torani, and every other species in this galaxy. We are all children of those ancient beings, connected by bonds that stretch across billions of years." The elder's light pulsed brighter. "When humanity reached the stars, we recognized the pattern immediately. The same adaptability, the same empathy, the same unstoppable drive to connect. We knew what you were. We knew what you would become." "And what is that?" Jin asked quietly. The elder turned, gesturing toward the sky with one crystalline limb. "Every galaxy faces a crisis. A threat that no single species can survive alone. The endless saved their galaxy by uniting it. The woven saved theirs the same way. And when this galaxy faces its crisis, humanity will do the same. You are not a threat, little one. You never were. You are the galaxy's immune system, its memory, its hope. You are the ones who will bind all species together, when binding together is the only way to survive." Jin felt tears forming in his eyes. He thought of his grandmother, Sora, who had been sent to spy on humans and had instead fallen in love with one. He thought of his grandfather, Tay, who had simply lived his life and changed the galaxy by being kind. He thought of his parents, his siblings, his daughter. "What happens when we are everywhere?" he asked. "When every species carries human blood, human memory, human ways." The elder's response was soft, almost gentle. "Then you will be ready. The crisis will come, as it always does, and you will face it together. All of you, human and otherwise. You will fight. You will sacrifice. You will win. And then? Then you will pass your fire to whatever comes next. Your children will carry your legacy across the stars, just as you carry the legacy of the endless and the woven. The pattern will continue. Life will continue. The universe will continue." The elder moved back, its form beginning to fade into the crystal landscape around them. We did not try to stop you because you are not something to be stopped. You are something to be welcomed, cherished, loved. The ancient voice grew distant. You are family, little one. And family does not fight family. Family endures together. Then the elder was gone, and Jin stood alone in the crystal garden with the weight of the universe on his shoulders. He stayed there for a long time, watching the sun set and the stars emerge. He thought about everything he had learned, everything he now understood, everything that still lay ahead. Finally, he turned and began the long journey home. His mother was waiting for him at the spaceport, her emerald wings catching the light. His father stood beside her, gray-haired now but still smiling the same warm smile that had won Sora's heart so many years ago. And his daughter ran toward him across the landing platform, her small form, a perfect blend of 3 species, 3 histories, 3 futures, woven into one. Jin caught her in his arms and held her tight. "What did you learn?" his mother asked. Jin looked at his family. He looked at the galaxy stretching above them, full of countless species connected by bonds older than stars. He looked at his daughter's face, so full of hope and possibility. "I learned what we are," he said quietly, "and what we will become." The galaxy watched. The galaxy waited. And humanity, quiet and patient and essential, continued to weave. The elders had been right all along. They were already too late to stop. And that was exactly as it should be.